This video is sponsored by MOVA Globes. What does it take to win a World Series? I mean, there's the obvious things, right? But tell me, what does it really take to win it all? You obviously need your star players, middle of the order bats, and ace pitchers that can carry a team to wins, and you also need a bit of luck, getting hot at the right times, and key guys staying healthy. You have to have a lot of things go your way to make a run at a championship, but one of the most important is that you need some of your more undervalued players to come up big. You expect your star players to put up big numbers for you. That's why most of the time you're paying them a lot of money. But most of the top teams are pretty close in terms of star power, so what ends up separating a championship team from the other top contenders is getting a whole lot of production from guys that you expected to play much smaller roles. Even if we just go back through recent history, every World Series winner since 2018 has had these role players that put their team over the top. Now, we could start in 2017. The Astros did have Marwin Gonzalez put up a career year out of nowhere, but we all know why he was so much better that year.
Yeah, I got you. I got you on camera. You on candid camera now.
So we're gonna start in 2018, where the Red Sox ended up with 108 wins and the best record in baseball. Yeah, they didn't need a lot of help outside of their star players to make the playoffs. The big bats in their lineup were all doing a ton of damage. Mookie Betts made his third All-Star team and won the AL MVP. JD Martinez finished fourth in MVP voting, made his second All-Star team and won his second Silver Slugger. Xander Bogaerts had his breakout season and turned into one of the better shortstops in baseball. And Andrew Benintendi had his career year and looked like he was taking that next step towards stardom. Chris Sale led the rotation, making his seventh All-Star team and finishing fourth in Cy Young voting, followed by the 2012 Cy Young winner and five-time All-Star David Price, who was solid as the number 2, and Craig Kimbrell racked up 42 saves and made his seventh All-Star team as the closer. This team was pretty stacked. They didn't need a lot of help during the regular season, but there were two guys gearing up for playoff runs that would carry this team to a championship. The Red Sox acquired Steve Pearce on June 28th in a trade with Toronto for Santiago Espinal. And man, did Pearce hit when he got his chances at first in DH. And on July 25th, they got Nathan Eovaldi from the Rays in a trade for left-handed pitcher Jalen Beeks. And the rest of the season with Boston, he started to show the pitcher that he'd end up turning into. When the playoffs started, every star bat for Boston except for JD Martinez went cold. So it was the backup first baseman Steve Pearce that led this lineup to a World Series win. Pearce took over at first after Mitch Moreland got hurt in Game 2 of the ALDS, and all he did was lead the team in homers, OPS, and WRC plus throughout the postseason. In the World Series, he had a game-tying solo homer in the 8th inning of Game 4, 2 more bombs in Game 5, and he won the World Series MVP, no big deal. And on the other side of the ball, there was Eovaldi, who pitched the second most innings on the team as both a starter and a reliever, and just shut it down. He went 6 innings and only gave up 2 runs, winning Game 3 of the ALCS against the Astros, and had a scoreless inning and a third of relief in the clinching Game 5. Then in the World Series, he pitched a scoreless 8th inning in Games 1 and 2, and then threw 97 pitches over 6 innings of relief, both World Series records for a reliever, during the 18-inning marathon Game 3, where Ian Kinsler's error in the 13th gave the Dodgers the tying run and kept them from losing. Then Eovaldi gave up his only earned run on a walk-off bomb by Max Muncy. Having a backup come in and take over as your best hitter and an unestablished starting pitcher be lights out whenever you needed him, yeah, that definitely played a big part in Boston walking away with a championship here. So now let's go to 2019, where the Nationals rode a 93-69 nice record to the top wildcard spot and eventually the World Series. Before we get to that, we gotta shout out the sponsor of this video, MOVA Globes. MOVA Globes are innovative, self-spinning globes that rotate completely on their own. No batteries, no cords, they're just powered by light and magnetism. They've got a wide variety of globes, including world maps, planets and moons with graphics provided by NASA and JPL, and guess what? Now they got baseballs. Mova Globes has teamed up with Major League Baseball to create globes resembling baseballs with your favorite team's logo. Check out this sweet Mariners globe I'm holding. You can see it rotate smoothly even in my hand. I can spin it around every direction, and it does its thing spinning around on its display stand. It's an awesome way to support your team and add a bit of flair to your memorabilia and team merch. I got my globe over here with all my other posters, cards, and baseballs. And right now, you can get 10% off any 6-inch or 8.5-inch Mova globes, including any of these awesome MLB globes, by using the code SMARTER10 at checkout. Just head over to movaglobes.com and pick out your favorite from all 30 MLB teams. Don't miss out on getting one of these awesome MLB globes to add to your collection or as a gift for the biggest baseball fan you know. And again, that's 10% off with the code SMARTR10 at movaglobes.com. Grab yours today and bring a little magic into your home, and thank you Mova Globes for sponsoring this video. Leading the lineup was third baseman Anthony Rendon, who made his only All-Star team. Juan Soto was the other big bat in this lineup, establishing himself as a star in this league in his second season, and Trey Turner was hitting the ball well too, while also playing good defense at short. And on the pitching side, you had a three-headed monster in the rotation with Steven Strasburg, Max Scherzer, and Patrick Corbin. Strasburg led the National League in innings, Scherzer made his 7th straight All-Star team and finished third in Cy Young voting, and Corbin went over 200 innings with a low 3s ERA in his first year in Washington. The Nationals weren't a powerhouse by any means. They had some high-end talent, but they also had their fair share of problems. So what took them from fringe playoff contender to eventual World Series champions was a career year that nobody saw coming. At 35 years old, Howie Kendrick was near the end of his career. He tore his Achilles in 2018 and only played in 131 games over the last 2 seasons, and he'd only ever been a good, not great hitter. He'd made 1 All-Star team over his career. So coming back from his Achilles injury, no one was ready for Kendrick's 2019 season. He'd only had an OPS over 800 in at least 100 games once, and he never slugged over 500 before. He put up career highs in average, on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, and WRC+. He was the 3rd big bat for the Nationals behind Rendon and Soto, and he had some big moments during the playoffs. In Game 5 of the NLDS, he hit a grand slam in the 10th inning that put the Nationals up 7-3, that won them the game and the series. He won the NLCS MVP after going 5 for 15 with 4 doubles and 4 RBIs, and in the World Series, he hit a go-ahead 2-run homer in the 7th inning of Game 7 that would be enough to put the Nationals up for good. Without Kendrick going off like he was beefing with Drake, it's hard to say whether the Nationals would have even made the playoffs. And on top of that, he had some big hits in elimination games that helped seal his team the win. Now next would be 2020, but since nobody won the World Series that year, we'll go on to the 2021 Braves. And when we talk about this Braves team, okay, I'm just joking. The Dodgers won the 2020 World Series. We can talk about this Dodgers team and the role players that played out of their minds, but I'm gonna keep this one pretty quick because 1, pretty much all of their star players were locked in the entire time, and 2, we didn't have as much time for things to play out like in other years, with the season only being 60 games. Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, and Will Smith all had OPSs over 900. Betts finished 2nd in MVP voting and won a Gold Glove and Silver Slugger. And Justin Turner, another key guy for them, also put up an 860 OPS. Clayton Kershaw, Dustin May, and Julio Urias all made double-digit starts, and basically the entire rotation and bullpen all had ERAs in the 2s or 3s. This entire pitching staff was basically lights out. These guys didn't really need a lot of help. They finished with the best record in baseball, and yeah, having some role players ball out helped them to be so dominant, but I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like that made that big of a difference. Chris Taylor and AJ Pollock both swung a hot bat in the regular season with OPSs over 840, but again, the Dodgers stars were the real heavy hitters, and in the postseason, Max Muncy and Jock Peterson got hot, But Seager was the guy that led the way and won both the NLCS and World Series MVPs. So now let's go to the 2021 Braves. And this team was a perfect example of why role players win teams a World Series. Because you really have to rely on your role players when a couple of your main guys go down. The Braves lost Ronald Acuna Jr. to a torn ACL in July, and Marcell Ozuna missed time because of fractured fingers, and he was put on administrative leave on September 9th because of domestic violence allegations because he's a fucking idiot. The offense ran through Austin Riley and Freddie Freeman. Both guys had a 136 WRC plus, hit over 300 and had over 30 bombs. But these guys couldn't do it alone, and the Braves still had a massive problem with their outfield. They didn't have an outfield. Atlanta went into the trade deadline basically needing an entire new outfield, and two of the guys that they ended up bringing in would be big parts of their championship run. Jorge Soler and Eddie Rosario were both struggling before they were traded to the Braves, but in Atlanta, they caught fire. Both slugging over 500 and had WRC pluses in the 130s. The Braves had the worst record of any playoff team this year, so safe to say that without these two stepping up the way they did, there's a pretty good chance that Atlanta doesn't even make the playoffs, and they definitely don't get as far as they did without these two. Rosario went off for an OPS over 1,000 during the playoffs. He had a walk-off single as part of a 4-hit performance in Game 2 of the NLCS. He hit 2 bombs and a triple in another 4-hit game in Game 4, and in Game 6, he helped clinch the pennant with a 3-run homer and won the NLCS MVP. And Soler had his own share of clutch hits, including a leadoff homer in Game 1 of the World Series, a pinch hit go-ahead homer in the 7th inning of Game 4, and a 3-run bomb in Game 6. So yeah, he won the World Series MVP. Normally you need a role player or two to step up to help out your star players, but these two did more than their part to fill the shoes of Acuna and Ozuna and lead this team to a championship. A couple role players that you brought in at the deadline that turned into your stars down the stretch. And that brings us to 2022. And this time, I don't have any jokes about the Astros, okay? It's just pure hatred. Good. This was another team that was loaded. The second best record in baseball and talent from top to bottom. Especially when you look at the lineup, there aren't many teams that have 4 hitters like Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, and Kyle Tucker. Altuve made his 8th All-Star team and won his 6th Silver Slugger. Alvarez made his 1st All-Star team and finished 3rd in MVP voting. Bregman was still playing like the 2-time All-Star he was, and Tucker had made his 1st All-Star team. The Astros lineup was set with these 4, and the pitching didn't really have any problems either. Justin Verlander made his 9th All-Star team and won his 3rd Cy Young at 39 years old. Christian Javier and Framber Valdez both had ERAs under 3, with Valdez making his 1st All-Star team, and the bullpen was just as good as the rotation. These guys had talent and depth across the board. They had no problem getting to the playoffs, or really all the way up until the World Series. It just wasn't one of the big names in their lineup that helped get them there. 24-year-old Jeremy Pena took over at shortstop to start the year after Carlos Correa left in free agency, and Pena had some pretty big shoes to fill there. Pena went through the usual growing pains as a rookie. He had his strengths like his glove is short and hitting over 20 homers, but his weaknesses too, like his on-base percentage being under 300. But playoff Pena was on one. Alex Bregman was the only one of the Astros' main 4 hitters that didn't really struggle through the playoffs, so Pena stepped up to lead the team in homers, OPS, and WRC+, and won the ALCS and World Series MVPs because man did he step up big when it mattered. In the ALDS, he had crucial hits late in both games 1 and 2 that set up Yordan Alvarez to hit game-winning homers both times and wrecked me mentally. Then he hit the go-ahead solo shot in the marathon 17-inning Game 3. He hit 353 with 2 bombs in the ALDS and hit 400 with a homer and 2 doubles during the World Series. The Astros pitching was still really good throughout the playoffs. Really everyone except Verlander and McCullers. But this lineup doesn't have nearly the same bite without Pena stepping up like he did. And finally, we have the 2023 Rangers, who didn't have an issue with talent. They just needed enough glue and duct tape to make it to the finish line. Corey Seager was the runner-up for MVP, even though he missed almost a third of the season. Seager, Marcus Semien, and Adolis Garcia all made the All-Star team, and this lineup was so deep, it didn't matter that a lot of their lineup spent time on the IL. Where this was a bigger problem was with the pitching staff. The biggest loss was ace Jacob deGrom going down with Tommy John in June, but starters Nathan Eovaldi, Max Scherzer, and John Gray, and relievers Josh Sborz and Jose Leclerc all had a stint on the IL. Texas needed someone to hold this pitching staff together, and they got that with Dane Dunning, who nearly tied Nathan Eovaldi for the team lead in B-WAR by a pitcher and bounced between the rotation and the bullpen as guys kept going down. Jordan Montgomery was also a big add at the trade deadline, but I'd argue Dunning was more important for this team. He had about a 3.5 ERA as a starter, so he wasn't just spot starting. He was filling in almost on a moment's notice and giving them quality innings. It took the Rangers until the second to last day of the season to clinch their playoff spot. Without Dunning holding the rotation together, there's a good chance they don't make it. But they needed another hero to step up once they got to the playoffs. The Rangers went through the postseason with Seager and Garcia leading the lineup. Eovaldi and Montgomery went out and absolutely shoved. But the Rangers' bullpen looked like a huge weakness until Josh Sborz happened. Going into the playoffs, it seemed like Texas was really only confident in Jose Leclerc and Aroldis Chapman out of the pen. And you kinda need more than two reliable relievers. So lucky for them, Sborz stepped up to give them another key guy that they could turn to late. Sborz was pretty bad during the regular season with a 5.5 ERA and 78 ERA plus. But once the postseason started, he was lights out. He only gave up one run and he pitched the last 7 outs of the World Series. And I find it so poetic that the guy that no one would have guessed would be a postseason hero for this team is the guy that ends the World Series with the ball in his hands.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
To go after a championship, you need talented star players to do the heavy lifting, you need injuries and luck to go your way, and you also need good depth and role players to step up and help get your team over the hump. Your stars set the tone for your team, they get results in big moments, but they can't do it all. And sometimes it's gonna come down to a player you never expected to come up big in a crucial moment and decide whether you're gonna be champions or not. Having one of your role players go on a miracle run could be the difference between just missing the playoffs and a championship parade. But let me know what you think about all this. What was your favorite playoff run by an undervalued player? Are these kinds of guys the deciding factor in a championship, or is it something else? Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, then make sure to like and subscribe so you see more videos from us. And for more baseball content like this, check out the video on your screen next. Thanks for watching and supporting the channel. Hope you have a good one. Later.